Now settle in and let me tell you something. Something small and quiet, and I think one of the most beautiful things ever put down on paper. It was Good Friday, the very end of it, and the cold that year was something particular. Not the honest cold of midwinter, but the cruel, wet cold of early spring. The kind that catches you off guard because the calendar says March, and yet the wind cuts right through you like it's forgotten the season entirely. A young man was walking home across the fields. Ivan Velikopolsky, his name was, a theology student, the son of a sacristan, a serious young fellow of about 22 with a good heart and a hungry mind. He'd been out since morning, shooting snipe in the marshes, and now the light was nearly gone and the cold had come in fast, and the wind was blowing hard off the meadows with a low, mournful sound. And as he walked, something settled over him, a heaviness. He was thinking, as young men do on evenings like this, about how nothing ever really changes, about how his mother sat in their cold little cottage right now, barefoot on the earthen floor, about how people had suffered in the time of Rurik, and suffered in the time of Ivan the Terrible, and suffered now, and would go on suffering. The cold, the poverty, the darkness, always. It all felt pointless somehow, as though joy was a rumor and warmth a borrowed thing. But then, through the darkening fields, he saw a light, a small fire, burning at the edge of someone's kitchen garden. 2 women were crouched beside it, a widow named Vasilisa and her daughter Lucaria. Vasilisa was a broad, solid woman, the kind who has weathered everything life has sent her way and stands a little heavier for it. Her daughter Lucaria was younger, thin and still, with the look of someone who had been ill a long time and had made peace with it. Ivan stopped. He held his cold hands out toward the flames, and the fire crackled and pushed back the dark a little, and for a moment everything was just warmth and silence and the smell of wood smoke on the night air. The women greeted him softly. They didn't speak much. They were fasting women, keeping the holy day in their own quiet way. There was something dignified in them, something ancient. And Ivan stood there, looking into the fire, and he thought, fires like this have been burning as long as there have been people. On cold nights, in dark fields, all through the centuries, men have always stopped at fires like this one, have always held out their hands just so, and something stirred in him. A memory, or more than a memory, a story he knew so well it had become part of his own blood. He looked at the 2 women. He looked at the fire. "Do you know," he said quietly, "it was cold like this on the night they took Jesus." And then he told them, not as a lesson, not as a sermon, just as you tell a story to someone you trust, leaning close with the fire between you. He told them about the high priest's courtyard, about how the disciples had scattered, and how Peter, bold, devoted, impulsive Peter, had followed at a distance, needing to know, needing to be close. He slipped in through the gate and found servants and soldiers standing around a charcoal fire, warming themselves. And Peter went and stood among them. "Just like this," Ivan said. "Just like us. Here. Now." A servant girl looked at him. "You were with him," she said. And Peter said, "I don't know what you mean." A little later, someone else. Again, "I don't know the man." And then a third time. And just as the words left his mouth, a cock crowed in the dark. And Peter remembered what Jesus had said to him, that he would deny him 3 times before morning. And Peter went out, and he wept. through the garden, and he looked up, and Vasilisa was crying. Not weeping loudly, just tears moving slowly down her weathered face. And Lucaria beside her, still and pale, was crying too, quietly, as though the grief was something familiar, as though they had been waiting, without knowing it, to hear the story again. He said goodnight. He walked on. The wind was still cold. The fields were still dark. His hands still ached from the chill. Nothing had changed, really, and yet something was different inside him. Something had shifted, and he didn't quite understand it yet. He kept thinking about the women's tears. Why had they wept? It was a story they surely knew, a story 2,000 years old. Why should it reach them so, here, now, on this cold night in this bare field? He turned it over and over as he walked, the way you worry at something that won't quite come clear. And then, slowly, the way light comes in the very early morning, before you even notice it's happening, something opened in him. Vasilisa had wept not out of pity alone. She had wept because what happened in that courtyard, that fire, that cold, that terrible moment of human weakness and love and loss, was not distant. It was not sealed away in the past like something behind glass. It was here. It had always been here. The pain that Peter felt was the pain Vasilisa knew. The cold around that fire was this cold. The sorrow was a living thing, passing from heart to heart across the centuries, losing nothing, diminishing nothing, arriving whole and true at the fire in a poor widow's kitchen garden on a Friday night in Holy Week. He stopped walking. He stood there in the dark field, and the sky overhead was immense and still, and something rose in him that he had no proper name for. The past, he understood, was not gone. It was not buried. Truth, real truth, and beauty, real beauty, the kind that lives in a man like Peter, who loves so fiercely he follows even when he is afraid, even when he fails. That truth does not end. It flows. It passes through every generation like a river running underground, surfacing in the weeping of a widow by a fire, in the hush that falls when an old story is told, as though for the first time. His mother, barefoot in the cold cottage. The servants around the high priest's fire. Vasilisa's slow tears. Lucaria's stillness. Himself, here, now, 22 years old, standing in a dark Russian field on Good Friday. All of it, connected. All of it, one thing. And this thought, this quiet, enormous thought, filled him not with the heaviness he'd carried all evening, but with joy. A joy that was almost frightening in how real it was. Mysterious and gentle and absolutely certain. He was nearly home. He could see the light of the village ahead. The wind had not died down, and the night was still cold, and tomorrow would bring what it would bring. But something in him was at rest. Something that had felt severed, felt whole, truth and beauty, continuing, unbroken, all the way from that courtyard fire to this one, and onward still, onward